the best way to figure out what career trajectory or what field you should be in is Marie Kondo your life, right? Like what sparks joy, right? If you have been working in an office doing sales and that does not spark joy, that is a clear indication that you should probably not be in sales, right? You should do a career pivot. And
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, I'm Sarah Kuhn. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I hope that you're having a good day today. I know that Mondays are always difficult for me. I love the weekends. I love all of the alone time and getting to decide whatever it is that I want to do. So Mondays are a bit challenging. But we have a great episode for you today. I spoke to a career coach named Taina Brown, who is absolutely wonderful. She has a lot of great insights about finding the right career and how to find your purpose and how to be authentic in that process for INFJs. Before we get to that, I wanted to tell you guys again a little bit about this community that we're creating. It's called INFJ Community. I like to think of it a lot like Facebook because it looks a lot like Facebook, but it's just for INFJs and it's exclusive for INFJs. That's everybody that's on the platform. It's specific to us. So every post that you see, every picture, every video, every article, they're all about INFJs. And the great thing about it is that it's a way to connect with other people who are INFJs. I know for me, before I started my Instagram and blog and this podcast, I had never met another INFJ, at least not that I knew of. And I didn't know what it felt like to be understood, to be heard, to be seen. And I was really longing for that. I wanted to be a part of a group. In fact, I tried so many things to be a part of some kind of group. When I was in school, like grade school, I was definitely not popular. I was the quiet person who ate lunch by themselves that everybody used to ask me what was wrong with me. And I had no idea, so I just assumed that there was something wrong with me, right? But in that process, I had that desire to be a part of a group, and I always felt like an outsider. I wasn't a part of any of the cliques or a part of any of the little groups that formed. I was the outsider. It was the same way in college. And by that point, I had just kind of accepted that I was outside. So I just figured out the best way to operate. And it's been the same way since I've been in the workplace as well. I tried really, really hard to be a part of a group because that's really what I wanted. I built my whole career around this group philosophy where I wanted to be included. And I thought that was the secret, that was the answer, that I just had to find the right career. I just had to find the right people. And I was right a little bit, but wrong a lot. What really needed to happen was I needed to find the right people. And it wasn't that I needed a different career or a different workplace or there wasn't anything about myself that needed to change. What actually needed to happen was I needed to accept myself for the way that I was, and to own that, and to be proud of it. And I found that, which was why I created this group, because I wanted to tell everybody else that it's okay. And I wanted to give us a place where we can all come together and to be ourselves and to be seen and heard, and to be able to connect with other INFJs. And that's what this community gives us. It gives us that ability to be a part of a group and to feel like we belong, to feel like we're recognized for who we are, and to feel like it's okay. Having that connection with other INFJs is just so amazing. One of the great things about this podcast is that I've been able to connect over video and phone calls with other INFJs. And not only is it this huge experience and this amazing opportunity to be able to share all of this information with all of you guys, but it has helped me so much, because I've made a lot of friends through these people that I'm interviewing and talking to. And I've learned so much about myself and about our personality type just through connecting with people. And already in about a month that I've had this community, that, there are over 800 people in the community now. So there's a lot of INFJs. Somebody even told me, I have about 50,000 people on Instagram, almost 50,000. And somebody reached out to me through direct message, and they were like, I don't think you're going to gain any more followers, because that's probably all the INFJs that are out there, because there really aren't that many. It's only like maybe 1% to 3%, depending on who you ask. And I was like, well, yeah, but there are 7 billion people in the world. So 1%, even if it's just 1% of 7 billion, is a whole lot more than 50,000. I mean, we want to do the math here. It's quite a bit more. So I understand that we're rare and that there's not very many of us, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, there is still quite a few of us out there. So if you haven't checked out the community, please go check it out. You can find it at infjcommunity.com. There's also a link for it in the show notes. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at INFJ Woman. You can find me on Facebook, also INFJ Woman. You can send me a direct message. You can send me an email, which is podcast@infjwoman.com. I would love to talk to you about it, to chat with you about it. I can send you the link directly if you can't find it. And like I said, I can answer any of your questions that you have about it or concerns. I had the most amazing conversation the other day with an INFJ career coach, another one that you're going to hear on the podcast soon. One of the things that we were discussing is love languages. And it's kind of funny that I was discussing this with a career coach, but it seems like when I talk to INFJs, we just connect and our conversation goes all different kinds of places. And this is one of the things that we were talking about. And I wanted to share with you what she said, because it was so amazing. She said that as INFJs, we need encouragement and affirmation. A lot of us, our love language is words of affirmation. And I don't know why it was so difficult for me to admit that, because when I look at the love languages, I want to say quality time and I want to say gifts, because I love getting gifts, especially when they're thoughtful and, they don't have to be expensive. But when somebody listens to what I say and surprises me with something, it's really pretty amazing. But honestly, the more that I think about it, the things that mean the most to me is when somebody says something really nice to me. When somebody tells me even something like, hey, you're doing a good job, or I really appreciate the work that you're doing. When they recognize things that I do for them. And because one of the ways that I show love is through acts of service. So when somebody recognizes me for that and points it out and says, hey, I really appreciate it, it's such an amazing thing. It was so comforting for me to hear that somebody else goes through the same thing, because she said the same thing, that that it was hard for her to admit that, and that now she asks her husband and her children for that. And I had never thought about it that way. But it was this amazing realization. And that's one of the great things about the group, honestly. She's a part of the group. Like I said, there are like 800 people that are part of the group, and it's this great place. I really hope that you will give it a try. When you click on the link, you'll see it's going to ask you to subscribe. There's a 1-week free trial with it. So you don't have to subscribe right away, but you can come into the group, see what it's like, really get the full experience before you actually have to invest anything into it. But I really hope that you do invest into it, because it's important and we can gain so much from it. I think about all of the different ways and places that I've tried to make friends, and it's never really worked out very well for me. I usually meet some people that I know at work, but if you don't have that where you work, then where do you go? This is definitely a great place for that. Plus, there's a lot of stuff that's coming as well. I am planning an event. I don't know exactly what to call it. A lot of people are using the word summit, but I don't like that word because I don't think a lot of people even know what it means. I want to think of it as like an online retreat, and maybe that's what we'll call it. But I've spoken to a relationship coach who's an INFJ, a career coach who's an INFJ, a writer who's also an INFJ, who all want to be involved. And I feel like it's just going to be us coming together and almost doing like a live podcast where you can be there and interact, ask questions, be a part of the conversation. And I think it's going to be this really great experience. Every time I talk to each one of these people, I have such meaningful and deep conversations. And I really, really want you guys to be a part of that. It feels like a life-changing experience, honestly. I am always searching for a bigger meaning, a bigger purpose. I'm constantly learning about myself and wanting to do, self-improvement, self-reflection, all of these different things. I want to be a better version of myself. And if that's something that you're interested in, this group is definitely the place that you need to be. Like I said, there is a little bit of an investment. It's really not that much, honestly. It's about the cost of eating out for lunch one day per month. If you subscribe for the whole year, then you get 2 months free. So you can definitely think about it that way too. This online retreat is only one of the events that we're doing. We're doing several other events. There's going to be an in-person retreat. I'm putting it out there in the universe. I'm going to make it happen at some point this year. We're going to do meetups, definitely in Boston, probably in New York as well. And there are also courses that we're going to do as well. If you're interested in self-improvement, if you're interested in starting a blog or marketing, any of those kinds of things, this is definitely the place for you as well. When you're a part of the group, you'll get a discount on all of those things, which is going to be a pretty big discount. So there's all kinds of incentives, all kinds of reasons for you to join the group. And I really, really, really hope that you do. It's really a great place, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to make it a safe place and to make it into this amazing place for everybody. And I really hope that you will join and that you'll be invested and that you'll enjoy it and participate and make some friends, because like I said, it can definitely be a life-changing experience. It's a whole new thing when you have just one person that you can reach out to and say, hey, I went through this experience. Have you ever been through this? Or do you understand? And especially when you're talking about something like, I was talking to one of my friends and I told her that I had this feeling last year that everything's changing. And I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. I just feel like everything's changing. Like something big is changing, and it's, nothing really changed. It's not like I moved to a different place or that I lost a bunch of weight. It's not that I even dyed my hair a different color. I just feel like there's this big internal change. And I'm like, I don't even know what it means. I'm kind of confused and it feels weird to say it. And she was like, no, I get it. I totally get it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I get it. She's like, just go with it. It's your intuition telling you that there is something changing and you just need to go with it. And it was so amazing. First of all, that she understood, which was killer, because I've told that to several people and they're like, I don't know what that means. That sounds really weird. Like, do you need to go see a doctor, or like, what's going on? So the first thing was that she got it, which was so amazing. And the second part was that she was encouraging me about it and helping me to process my feelings and work through it. So like I said, I think everybody needs another INFJ in their life, especially if you are an INFJ. I definitely think you should be a part of it. So please go check it out if you haven't. Like I said, you can find it at infjcommunity.com, and you can find the link in the show notes. Okay, so let's get to our guest. Our guest is Taina Brown, who is a career coach with over 10 years of experience helping people find their purpose and the right careers. Taina is an INFJ, and she's a completely wonderful and amazing person. We had a great conversation. So I really hope that you enjoy it. As a reminder, you can watch the video interview on YouTube at youtube.com/The Quiet Ones podcast. How did you find out that you're INFJ?
I actually came up as an INTJ when I first took a personality test.
Me too.
And oh, really? Okay. And so I was like really hardcore about just being that kind of person. And then one day in therapy, my therapist was like, what's your personality type? And I told her, I was like, well, it came up as an INTJ. And at this point, it had been a few years since I'd taken it. But she was like, I think you're an INFJ. And I was like, I don't think so. I was like, I'm pretty like hardcore, just like very logical, very rational, very just like systematic in the way I think about things. She was like, yeah, but you have a lot of feelings. So, and the way you express them and the way you deal with them seems more like an INFJ. So maybe you should take the like a personality test again to see what comes up. And I did, and sure enough, it was INFJ. And so I think probably what had happened was life circumstances had forced my F into a T because of responsibilities and things that had happened. And so I think for part of my life, I was expressing myself as an INTJ out of necessity, but at my core, I'm definitely an INFJ.
Yeah, I think there are so many things that can affect it, and it's always difficult for us because we use both the thinking and the feeling sides of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, at least in my case, I answered the questions how I wanted to seem and how I thought I should be rather than how I actually was.
Yeah.
But it's helpful to have somebody else to help you through it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell people, when you're taking the test, make sure that you try to answer the questions as you actually are, and maybe even ask some of your friends or family members, is this really how I am? Like, do I have a good opinion of myself? Do I know exactly what I'm doing?
Yeah, self-awareness is sometimes not like 100% there, right? Because we do have these ideas of what we feel like we should be and how we should be presenting ourselves to the world. And so sometimes that can get in the way of really knowing ourselves fully the way that we should.
Right. So you are a career coach. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a life and career coach. So I also do some like leadership consultations on the side and leadership development. But yeah, I do that. Yeah.
I'm so excited to talk to you because of that, because so many people ask me, what's the best career for INFJs? And so many people, so many INFJs, we feel like we have this big purpose. And a lot of us, it takes a long time to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to hear your opinion about what's the best career. Is it part of our purpose? How does all of that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when we're talking about career and purpose, it's important to distinguish that they're not necessarily the same thing, right? Like your purpose could be to just generally speaking, let's say make people happy, right? But that's not going to always translate into the career that you have, right? Like your career could be a part of that, but your purpose is so much bigger than what you do from your during your 9 to 5, right? So I think it's important to know that your purpose is like the big scheme of things, and whatever your job is, whatever your career is, whatever you're going to school for, wherever you are in your season of life, that is a step getting you towards your purpose, right? Like that's just a small part of what your purpose is. And in terms of best careers for INFJs, I don't necessarily ascribe to the idea that there are like the best careers, because everyone's situation is different, right? Like when you take a personality test, like you might come up as an INFJ, but like your I might be 10% and my I might be 90%, right? So that's going to affect how we interact with the world, how we interact with people, how we interact with careers and things like that. And so there isn't like a neat set of careers for any particular personality type. And so you really have to do the work of discovering what your purpose is and what career can help you identify with that purpose, what career can help you feel like you're fulfilling that part of your purpose, right? And so sometimes it's a career, sometimes it's a side hustle, sometimes it's volunteering, right? Like your career isn't going to be the end all of making sure that you feel satisfied and content in your purpose. It can definitely contribute to that. But if you're in a situation right now where you don't have that luxury or that option, find something that you can give your time to and your energy to that's going to satisfy that soul purpose that's inside of you, that's going to make you feel like you're not just living for the 9 to 5 grind, that you are living for a higher purpose. Because INFJs, we are always looking for what that higher purpose is. We are always looking for like the bigger picture. Like, how do I fit into the bigger picture? How can I give back? Like, how can I help other people? And a lot of us are empaths. Because of that, like we have just like that really innate intuition that helps us be more empathetic. So it's important to realize that there are multiple ways to discover what that purpose is. And it's not just through your career, and it's not going to look the same way it looks for another INFJ.
Yeah, for sure. When I was in high school, I was completely obsessed with figuring out what it was that I was supposed to do, because I don't like doing things twice. And I knew that college was expensive, and I'm like, I got to pick the right major. So I put all of this pressure on myself to like do the right thing the first time. And do you know what happened? I spent 10 years in college, and I have 3 different college degrees, and they're all completely different, and I've never used any of them. And then I ended up in a career in marketing too, which is like, when you read all of those lists of what INFJs should do, none of them ever say marketing.
Right.
And I don't really suggest that INFJs do marketing, digital marketing maybe, because that's a lot easier. It's a lot less people-y.
Right.
But one of the things that I found was that my career and my purpose really found me. And I know that when I was young, some people would tell me that, and I hated it. I was like, that's the worst advice. Like, what am I supposed to do with that?
It's not very practical.
Yes. And I remember that now when I want to tell people that, you know, I know that you put a lot of pressure on yourself to figure out exactly what it is that you're supposed to do, because I did the same thing. But I really feel like eventually your career and your purpose, mainly your purpose, they're going to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it works that way for, I would say, I think it works that way for mostly everyone, right? Like there are definitely those people who are like, no, I've wanted to be a doctor since I was 2 years old. Like that is like my dream. I will die being a doctor, right? Or an artist or a politician or whatever the case may be. But I think that is usually an exception, right? But we hear those stories a lot because they are exceptions. But then because those are the only stories we hear, we think that that's the way it has to be for everyone, when that's not the case. I do think that being an INFJ and having that introverted intuition It's really important for people with this personality type to have enough alone time in order to rely on that introverted intuition, right? Because that's what's going to help us. That's what's going to help guide us, right, on the path that we should be heading towards. And when I say the path that we should be heading towards, or like when we talk about purpose, we tend to think about it as a destination, as opposed to a journey. And we have to realize that purpose and quote unquote destiny, or our life path, it is a journey. It's not a destination. It will evolve as the world evolves, as our needs evolve, as we evolve as human beings, right? The more self-aware we become, the more reliant on our intuition we become, the more that path can evolve and change with us. And so if we don't schedule in that time to just be alone and listen to our intuition, we could miss opportunities that can help us get to that place sooner rather than later. I don't necessarily ascribe to the idea that like if you miss it, you miss it, right? Like those opportunities will come back around. They might look different, but they'll come back around. But it's super important for people who have an introverted intuition to have that alone time, have that quiet time where they can either journal or paint or do something creative that is going to help build up that intuition, because it's a muscle, right? The more we practice it, the more we do it, the easier it becomes, the easier it is to be able to tell, okay, that's my intuition and that's not like so-and-so's voice, or that's not like what I saw on social media or what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up the idea of your dreams evolving, because I was talking to Sierra Mayfield earlier on an earlier episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both talking about how we set out on this plan to do something big. Like for me, I was going to be an engineer. I knew that when I was in high school. And so I told everybody I'm going to be an engineer. I'm studying engineering. For a while, it was aerospace engineering, and then it was mechanical engineering. And I was so committed to this idea. And then once I got into engineering school, it was really difficult and I quit. And then I finished another degree, and then I was like, no, I'm going to be an engineer. I told everybody I was going to be an engineer. So I actually went back to school, and I ended up with 3/4 of an engineering degree.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, had spent all of this money because I went to a really nice school,
Mm-hmm.
and I have all these student loans, and I've been telling people for 10 years at that point that I'm going to be an engineer. And I was miserable. I hated it, and I didn't want to do it. And even now, people still ask me when I tell them, they're like, you have 3/4 of a degree. Like, why don't you go finish? That's one more year. And now I'm kind of thankful that it's been more than 6 years. So it's like, oh, well, I'd have to start all over again.
Yeah.
but part of the problem with it, though, was like, I wanted to quit, but I didn't want to tell everybody that I wanted to quit. I didn't want to look like a failure and to seem like a failure to them. And even though my dreams had changed, my idea of what my life would be had changed, it was really difficult for me to actually face everybody and say, hey, this really isn't for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is, sometimes we put ourselves in situations like that. I know I've definitely been in that situation as well. And it's because we feel like, okay, I said I'm going to do this, I have to follow through.
Right.
And, if we have enough time to nurture our own intuition, right, regardless of where you are in the phase, whether you're 1/3 of the way through or 3/4 of the way through, it becomes a little bit easier to like be okay with yourself, right? And be okay thinking and knowing that, yeah, some people might be judgy, but the people who really care about you, like, they're not necessarily going to be like, oh, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it, right? They'll recognize that, okay, this really isn't for you. And where you're headed is somewhere completely different. And that's okay. Like, it's totally okay to change directions and to pivot.
Yeah, that's something that I'm definitely learning, because I have a lot of dreams that I've had for a long time. And I've just recently come to that conclusion that's like, I need to sit down and reevaluate these dreams, because are they my dream because it's been my dream for all of my 34 years, for as long as I can remember? Or is it my dream because I still really want it at this point?
Mm.
It's kind of like this whole evaluation process,
Right.
honestly. So I want to ask you, a lot of people ask me this: how do you find the right career for you? I know
Mm-hmm.
that when I was looking for careers, my mom actually made me take a career planning class in college, which was a
Oh,
total
wow.
waste of money. Because it said that I should be an engineer. And I was like, well, duh, because I wanted to be an engineer at that point. So I'm like, well, of course that's what it's going to say, because I made it say that.
Yeah.
But
Confirmation bias, right?
yeah, like, but if you are young and you're totally lost, you have no idea, or if you're about my age, which is not so young anymore, but you still feel like you're lost, you've done something and you don't think that it's what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even spoken to people who are about 50, 55 years old, and they still feel like they're lost.
Yeah.
Where do you start? I know those are three completely different situations.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is you can start at the same place, right? The best way to figure out what career trajectory or what field you should be in is Marie Kondo your life, right? Like, what sparks joy, right? If you have been working in an office doing sales and that does not spark joy, that is a clear indication that you should probably not be in sales, right? You should do a career
Right.
pivot and figure out something else. And so what you don't enjoy doing is as valuable information as much as what you do enjoy doing, but you have to figure out what you do enjoy doing, right? And so it's important to, again, sit down, have that alone time, and just discover, like, have some time of self-discovery, right? Like, coaching came to me not because I was pursuing it. I was working with an organization and I knew that I liked like mentoring younger people and I knew that I liked helping people, but the organization that I was with needed help with like developing some leadership curriculum and like coaching some college students and young professionals. And at that point, I had built up a really good rapport with the leadership in the organization and with some of the volunteers. And so I was like, yeah, this sounds like something I could do, right? And so I started doing it and I loved it. And I did it for about 10 years with that organization. And now I'm doing it on my own, right? So it's not always going to be a linear path, right? You're going to have to be open to possibilities. You're going to have to open yourself up to new things and to things that maybe you hadn't considered before. And so, but the more you open yourself up to those experiences, the more you can see, okay, I don't like this. I do like this kind of, like doing this specific part of my job sparks joy, but doing this other specific part of my job doesn't spark joy. And it's important to understand too that like even with a career, there's always going to be a couple things about your job that you're absolutely going to hate. Right? Like it's not always going to be like sunshine and roses. There are definitely going to be things that you don't want to do, but that have to be done. Like with my coaching business, like there are things, even though I'm working for myself, there are things that I don't enjoy doing, right? I don't enjoy like all the administrative stuff because that's just really boring to me. Like it's really tedious. I'd rather be doing other things like developing content and like actually meeting with people, but it's a necessary part of the job. It's a necessary evil in order to get to the bigger picture of what my career is. If most of your job you don't enjoy, except for like maybe one or two things, then that's another indication, right? That like maybe this isn't the best job for you. But if it's just like one or two things about your job and everything else is great, then maybe that is the right job for you. And so in terms of like figuring out your career, again, just like find what sparks joy, right? Because even like, let's take the sales example, right? Even though maybe part of your sales job is doing cold calling or like person-to-person sales, right? So, or what they call like B2B sales. So maybe that's a part that you like. You like interacting with other people, but maybe when it comes to like actual numbers that you have to start talking about and like the actual sales pitch, maybe you don't like that, right? So even though you might hate your sales job, like you've learned something new in that career. You've learned that you actually enjoy directly talking to people and engaging with people on a day-to-day basis. So maybe start looking for a career that allows you to do that. Maybe not in sales, but maybe in something else, right? Like, I can't think of any because I'm not in that position. But you know, like maybe working in a museum, you know, where you have to engage with people on a daily basis or something like that. And also don't discount volunteer opportunities to give back and engage with your local community, because you can find a lot of self-discovery through that as well.
I have found that volunteer opportunities open a lot of doors for careers as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to get in with a company that you want to get into, or to learn about it and to see if that's what you want as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I have several friends who, you know, spent a lot of time volunteering with organizations here in Atlanta, doing activist organizing and things like that, like reproductive justice. And a few of them are like now on staff with some of those organizations, right? Because I mean, not because they've like put in their time, but because they've been so committed to the organization, right? They're so involved that at some point a position became available. And even if it doesn't become available, maybe there's a position in another organization, right? Like, because it's also a way to network.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're not out there meeting people, like how will you know about opportunities that come up?
Yep. Yes, for sure. And it seems like in this day and age, it's all about who you know rather than what you know.
Right. Right.
So something else that a lot of INFJs ask me about is in the description for INFJs that you read almost everywhere. It says that INFJs are writers. And so for me, when I first found out that I was INFJ, I was like, I'm not really a writer, and that doesn't really fit with me. And when I first started writing my blog, it was difficult for me to write. Even though I wanted to write, it was difficult. But then I learned that once I do it like all the time, then it's a lot easier. So do you think that all INFJs are writers, or what's your opinion on that?
I think INFJs are great communicators. And I think that's why the writing thing might come up, right? So thinking about writing as a means of communication, so it's more abstract and less literal, is a good way to look at it. So like communications can be blogging, or it can be podcasting, you know, it could be some marketing or journalism, it could be radio, like it could be so many different things. Like I think we just have a really good knack for communicating with people because we are so intuitive. And that could just mean, let's say you do love sales and you're in a sales position, it could just mean you're a great communicator with the people that you interact with on a daily basis. So no, I don't think that necessarily means that like writing is something that we should all ascribe to. But I think just thinking about it in the terms of communication, right? Like we definitely have a knack for communicating. And so I think, and we like communicating for the most part. And so I think being in a position or in a career that allows you to hone in on that skill is going to fulfill some of that like life purpose feeling.
Yeah. For me, I think I really like communicating things that I like. And I know that sounds really weird, but when you work in marketing, I've worked for an agency where we had to put together marketing copy and campaigns for a lot of different companies. And if I wasn't really interested in it, I didn't do very well. But when I'm really interested in it, then it works really well.
Because you believe in it, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And the biggest campaign that I've ever worked on is the INFJ Woman one. And, you know, I've gained 40,000 followers in under a year on Instagram. Wow. So So for me, I mean, a lot of people ask me how I did that. And I want to sit there and say, well, you know, I have 10 years of experience in digital marketing. And so I can tell you exactly how to put together a post, and I do graphic design, and I know all about hashtags and all this thing. But I think the real reason is that it's my heart and soul. Like I poured everything into that, and it means a lot to me. It was one of my biggest pain points, and is, as a person, feeling misunderstood and not having anybody around me who understands, or who I can communicate with, or anybody who will say, yeah, I feel the same way. Most of the time, you know, when I explain my feelings to people, they're like, okay, that's odd. You know? And I know that a lot of people feel the same way. So I feel like that's why it's done so well. And for me, that's why it makes such a difference to me too. When I was looking at INFJ careers, a lot of them say that INFJs like to help other people. And to me, that didn't really resonate with me very much, because when I think about my careers, I worked in marketing. I wanted to be an engineer for a long time. There wasn't a lot of helping other people in that, but I feel like maybe that was the part that was missing. And maybe that's why it really feels like my purpose now, because I know that I'm helping other people. And so it feels like there's a higher purpose to my work as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you're combining some of that previous experience, right? You're marrying that marketing and that digital like communication part of your previous experience with the purpose of helping people. And so again, you know, just like being open to new experiences, right? Like when you were in marketing, maybe sometimes you loved it, maybe sometimes you hated it, but you learned some things from there, right? And when you left that, you can take what you learned in that position and apply it to your next step. And the more we do that, the more we accumulate knowledge, and the more we accumulate self-discovery, and the more we're able to tap into what that life purpose is.
I think another problem that a lot of INFJs had, and I know that I had as well, is that we look at traditional careers. We look at being a doctor, a police officer, an engineer, an architect, and we say, I don't like any of those options. And nowadays, it's almost like you can take the things that you like and create your own career, which is kind of, that really feels like for me what I did, because I love social media. I'm constantly on social media personally, and I created my page because I thought, well, if I could help one other person, and I just want to do more of this. And every single aspect of the INFJ Woman and Community brand has been something else that I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, let me find a way to incorporate this because I really like it. And I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur either until the previous year. Well, a year and a half now, probably. So what do you think about INFJs being entrepreneurs and having more non-traditional careers? Because you have kind of a non-traditional career as a life coach.
Yeah, it's very non-traditional, and it's very entrepreneurial, which, I mean, there was a part of me, even when I was young, that was like, oh, I want to have like my own thing. Like I've always been fiercely independent that way. So it was less of oh, I have this dream to own my own business, and more of, I don't want anyone to tell me what to do.
I was completely opposite. I was like, I just want to go to work and put in my time. But then once I did that for about 10 years, I was like, I don't want anybody to tell me what to do anymore.
It feels like that whole like routine of like 9 to 5 just feels very stifling for me. And so and I mean, I've had some jobs that I enjoy more than others. I worked for like a travel and tourism operator for a few years, and I really enjoyed that job. I enjoyed the context of the job, but the whole like 9 to 5 office thing was it still felt somewhat stifling. But I think with the way that technology is evolving so quickly, there's so much room for like non-traditional careers in today's day and age. And so that can really look like anything. Like, I mean, we have the whole like micro influencer / mega influencer careers, right? Where people are literally just like creating content nonstop and partnering with brands and companies and things of that nature. And so I think it's easy to develop your own non-traditional kind of career. I think for INFJs, the part of the hang up can be, and I know this was part of my hang up personally, so this might not necessarily apply to everyone, but having so many interests and ideas and figuring out, okay, how do I create something concrete out of this? And so it's important to realize that like not every interest or idea has to be separate, like they can build upon each other. And in today's day and age, because technology is advancing so much, I honestly think everyone should have some type of entrepreneurial, I don't want to say side hustle, because I don't like the ideology of like hustling, because I feel like there's not enough rest in that type of culture.
Right.
But just everyone should have some kind of entrepreneurial side gig that they're working on, right? Because the economy it's okay. It's not the greatest. It's not the worst. It's definitely trending downward. Student loan debt, right? Like we talked about that earlier. Like there's just so much going on in the world today. Like wages are not getting higher, right? And so it's important for us as people to have multiple streams of income in order to be able to live the life that we want and live the life that we need to live, especially for INFJs, because we need that alone time. We need to have the luxury of being able to step away as needed in order to cultivate that inner creativity and that inner intuition. And so while that might look different for different people, right? Like not every INFJ is going to become, an influencer on Instagram or social media, but some kind of entrepreneurial venture, whether it's blogging or travel writing or photography, something that's creative, I think is a good way for INFJs to hone in on that introverted kind of work environment that we crave a lot, in order to balance us out.
Right. Yes. It's such a big difference working for yourself, as opposed to working in an office with cubicles and, that's so, it's just so limiting, honestly, especially when you don't agree with the values of the company, or if it's a really loud environment. And I know the last time I was looking for a job, I would ask people, what does your office look like? Because a lot of offices in Boston have an open office concept. And I'm like, I can't do that. Yeah. I don't care if it's a perfect job. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, for sure. So you said earlier that you're a career and a life coach. How does that help somebody sort through this process? Because I know that it's a really difficult process for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of coaching, so for someone who is looking for what their life purpose is and what they feel like they're meant to be doing, that's less of a career coach and more of a life coach, because that's getting into the nitty-gritty of who you are as an individual. And so the best coaches that are out there don't necessarily tell you what the answer is, but ask enough of the right questions to help you reveal what the answer is, the answer that you already have inside of yourself. And so when it comes to figuring out what your life purpose is, what you're good at, what you should be doing, taking next steps, right? That's a process that can take anywhere from 3 months to a year to longer. And so that's where life coaching comes in handy, because a life coach is there to walk with you on that journey for as long as it takes. When we're talking about career coaching, right, that can look less long-term. That can look like, oh, I'm trying to make a career pivot, or I need help managing my managers, right? Like managing up and that kind of thing. So those are very like concrete short-term issues that someone might be having, that a career coach can say, oh, I have experience in that because I've been working in the industry for, like, I've been working in corporate America for so long that I have experience managing up, and I have experience managing down, and I had experience with conflict mediation with peers, right? And so it's a little less long-term and more concrete, whereas life coaching is a lot more broad, but at the same time, very, very narrow, because it's unique to that individual.
It seems like, honestly, that it would be great to have a combination of both of those, really. I know that was definitely what I needed in my life. I hired a life and a business coach last year, and it made such a huge difference. I didn't realize so many things about my past and my personality, and things like boundaries and anger and things like that played such a big role into my work. And
yes,
and how I chose what job that I was going to, and how I chose the boss that I had as well.
Yeah, and it's really, I think that's the benefit of having that coach in your corner, right? Because they're able to walk alongside the journey with you, but they're able to pull you out from the middle of the circumstance and say, okay, let's look at what's really going on here. And what do you think led to this? How did you contribute to this? How did you not contribute to this? How can you respond in the future? What's the best way that you can respond right now, right? And it's like having a best friend, but a best friend who's going to give you that tough love that you need, right? Sometimes a best friend or a family member or a mentor, like, they're super supportive, and not saying that we don't need those. Like, we definitely need those people in our lives, but a coach is a specific type of relationship that is going to give you tough love. They're going to give you homework, right? Like, you have to be willing to put in the work in order to work with a coach, because again, they're not there to answer the questions for you. We're here to help you discover the answers that you already have within yourself. And in order to do that, you have to be ready to put in that effort and to sit with yourself.
Yeah, and it's almost like having a counselor, honestly. It's like a neutral third party who can help you sort through things, but not necessarily give you all the answers, but direct you in the right path. And it's so helpful to have somebody who doesn't have skin in the game, because if you're talking to your friend or your family, they probably already have an idea of how they see you or what they think, they have something that they want for you, and that may not be what you want. And like we said before, reevaluating your goals, when you're looking at a new career, it may take you reevaluating your opinion of yourself to find the right career as well.
We also have our own hangups, right, about what our life should look like. And we're like, okay, no, I said I was going to be an engineer, or I said I was going to get my PhD. Like, for me, it was like the PhD. Like, I have been saying I was going to get my PhD since however long ago it was. And coming to the realization that, like, I actually don't enjoy school enough to go and get my PhD. Like, I love learning, but I hate homework. So being in school for another 5 or 6 years to do a PhD is like my definition of hell, because it's taking something that I love and it's making it like super arduous and super miserable. A coach, right, whether it's for a career or life, is like, okay, you're saying that this is what you want, but all of your actions are saying something else, right? And like you said, in that way, it's kind of like a counselor. And I would say the line between coach and counselor can sometimes get a little bit blurred. Obviously, like, a counselor or a mental health professional has a special type of certification and a special type of knowledge that you need. And so they're able to go even deeper and walk with you even further, or really, really, really get to, like, issues and traumas and things like that affect your relationships, that affect your work life. Whereas a coach, it's more, it's less about getting into that trauma and more about, like, okay, the trauma happened and it's affecting this and this and that. So, like, how can we work around this? In the meantime, if you have, like, deep trauma, maybe you should also get a mental health professional, right?
Right.
So, again, a coach is a very specific type of relationship that I feel like all people should have a coach. Because I mean, if you play a sport, you have your coach, right? And I feel like life is a sport sometimes.
Yes, it seems like it sometimes. So tell us where we find you, your website and your social media.
Yeah, so my website is tainambrown.com. So that's my name, my middle initial M like Mary, last name Brown.com. And on my website, I have the different services that I offer. So I offer one-on-one coaching. I also offer a one-time like resume consulting service for anyone who's, looking for a career change or career pivot and just needs like a fresh set of eyes, needs some help getting past applicant tracking systems or guidance with cover letter work. And that includes as well 2 weeks of email coaching once the resume work is done. And then I also offer group coaching and leadership development workshops. And all that information is on my website.
Okay, here's some takeaways from our interview. Number 1, your career and your purpose may not necessarily be the same thing. Number 2, your purpose can be a volunteer opportunity or another way to give back or help people that you can find. Number 3, it's okay to start down one career path and change your mind. It's okay to reevaluate your dreams from time to time. Number 4, the best way to figure out what career you should be in is to think about what sparks joy in your life. Number 5, there's always going to be parts of your job that you don't like. The key is to find something that you enjoy doing most of. Number 6, volunteering is a great way to decide if a certain career path is for you and to meet people in a company that you want to work for. Number 7, not all INFJs are meant to be writers, but we are great at communicating. And there are a lot of ways to communicate without exclusively being a writer. Number 8, INFJs make amazing entrepreneurs. We are great at combining all of our experience and creating our own career path. And number 9, a career coach can help guide you in your path to finding the right career and to find your life purpose. All right, that's all we have for today. Please make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. As a reminder, you can watch all of the video interviews on YouTube at youtube.com/thequietonespodcast. You can also find some bonus videos on youtube.com/INFJwoman. Also, make sure that you leave a review or a comment wherever you listen. It helps other people to find us. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.